You are listening to the Slow Living Podcast, and I'm your host, Stephanie O'Day. What if I told you that you could truly have the life of your dreams, the life you've always wanted, one filled with abundance, joy, and a sense of purpose? It's absolutely possible, and I see it each and every day with my coaching clients. It all starts with learning how to slow down. You deserve to live the life you've always dreamt about. Let's get started. Hi there, Slow Down Society, and welcome back to another edition of the Slow Living Podcast. We're on episode number 137, and today I'm going to introduce you to my business coach, Amanda Joyce Weber, because people ask me all the time, one, will I business coach them? And two, did I have a coach? Did I work with a coach? And the answer is no, I'm probably not going to business coach you because I'm not a business coach. I do believe all coaching is coaching. So I can absolutely help you get from where you are to where you want to go. But as far as like actual eyeballs on your business, it really is better to work with a business coach. I prefer personal development-y, all things of the peace pyramid. But I knew I was good with that. And I needed another pair of eyeballs on my business. But I also have been online long enough to realize that a paint by numbers, cookie cutter, this is the recipe and follow it and it will always work no matter what, does not work. I wanted mindset. I wanted someone to validate me. I wanted someone to tell me I wasn't stupid. I didn't want to work with another like stereotypical business bro with the beard who knows it all. No, I wanted someone else. And so I was looking through my notes to try and figure out how I originally stumbled upon Amanda Joyce Weber and her One Simple Shift podcast. I don't know how, but I do believe the stars in the universe aligned and she was delivered to me. I binge listened to practically every episode of the One Simple Shift podcast, got on a call with her, realized, okay, she's exactly how she portrays herself on her podcast. She is amazing. And I hired her on the spot. And it was literally one of the best decisions in my business trajectory I've ever made. She was worth every single penny. And I'm absolutely thrilled to have her here with us today. Thank you. Amanda, thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh, what a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much for having me. I'm like so incredibly touched. I definitely do not have the beard though. I can tell you that much. But I am so thrilled to be here with you. And I'm just so blessed that our paths crossed when they did, because you were absolutely a joy to work with. And I cannot imagine like not having that honor and joy of coaching you. It's just been such a beautiful thing to witness your journey and watch how it's all unfolded. And I'm just so excited to be here today.
Yeah. So we worked together from the fall of 2020 to the fall of 2021. And then this podcast started in the fall of 2021, which is why actually I ended up stopping working with you because I needed to allocate those funds to other things, to pay for other things. But at the time, I was floundery. I knew I didn't want to be the crockpot lady for the rest of my life. I had different ideas and I was constantly being told no. And so I wanted a fresh perspective. I wanted to be told honestly that I wasn't stupid. And I listened to all your podcast episodes, and one, because of that, you definitely pre-sold me. But also what was so like refreshing to me is that you're younger than me. And that sounds so silly, but I really wanted like newness and life breathed into what I was trying to do. And gosh, you just completely and totally delivered.
Aw, well, that's amazing to hear. I remember so much of those early conversations really being around like everyone's telling me to stay in my lane. Everyone's telling me that like, this is your thing, stick with your thing, keep going with your thing. And I just remember being like, oh, fuck no. Life. Oh, can I swear on here?
It's fine.
Sorry.
We're good.
And I just remember being like, oh, hell no. Like we are only here for such a limited amount of time,
Yeah.
like life is too freaking short to just stay that small and not pursue the thing that is on your heart. And I have such a fire under me for that, for whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe I was born with it, right? But I just think that our desires are the roadmap, and your desire to shift into the peace pyramid and slow living and so many of these threads that were there all along. And I could so see the connections between the crock potting and what really drew you to that in the beginning, and the desire for the slow living and the desire for that peace and the desire to help others. And I really saw the threads, and I guess to me, that just made it so much simpler to be like, yeah, we can do this. You can do this,
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's interesting. It was a large, like 1,000-piece puzzle in my brain. And I needed one to talk it all out. So a lot of coaching is listening to your own ideas and then hearing them and then being filtered through someone else. So it's similar to talk therapy in some ways, but you're not trying to like heal the past. You're trying to move forward. And I didn't need help with the past. I mean, I've definitely, therapy is great. And this is not a knock on therapy. I think it's amazing and wonderful, but I knew I wasn't interested in dwelling on the past. I was interested in moving forward. And so Amanda was really helpful in all of that. But she also gave me the grace and the space to go off on tangents. And then she would carefully guide me back. And a big part of my fear was truly not pissing off the crock potters.
Yeah.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on that.
Yeah. Totally. But I think that we even determined like that would be okay, right? Like
Yeah,
I
we
think we
did. So I do
eventually,
have a bad review, Amanda, on the podcast, and
oh
it's
no.
she really should stick to recipes. Which hurt, but also you helped me like preemptively, like, okay, so that's probably going to happen, Steph, and you're not going to die.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's just more important that you're out here living out your purpose and feeling fulfilled in the way that feels true to you than one bad review.
I
Like at
know
the end of the day, like that's not the thing driving this, right?
it's not. It's not, except for I'm not going to lie, because I am an actual full-fledged human. It does hurt when you put yourself out there,
Totally.
and yet, thankfully, having someone in my corner like you and other people to remind me being vulnerable feels uncomfortable, but having something inside that you don't get out because you're scared of that feels worse.
And I'm a huge believer that fear is the thing that holds us back in business, like the most, because it's either the fear of success or the fear of failure, and you can get it in both directions, right? So, like that fear of criticism. What are people going to think? What are people going to say? Is this the wrong direction? And then the fear of success. Can I actually hold this if I do get it? Can I actually handle what comes next? Can I actually make the right decisions there? And I think that both of those can really keep you stuck in business and really keep you in your head
Yeah.
if you don't have someone to reflect that to.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. One other thing, we talked through so many things, and I wanted a new book, and I
Mhm.
wanted the course, and I wanted different like a part of the product suite. I wanted to do like quote unquote love letters from mom. Like I wanted to do all of these things, and you were cool with all of that and still helped me put the puzzle together in a way that made sense and felt organic. And I don't actually know how you did that.
Well, I think a lot of it is just having space to process those ideas and get them out. I think that sometimes these ideas sound really, really cool in our head. And then we go to tell someone about them. We're like, oh, but maybe not. Right. And sometimes they sound really, really good in our head. And we tell someone about them. And that's the fire we need to be like, yeah, you should go
Yeah.
do that thing. That is definitely what you are here to do. And I think that that's not really my job to decide for you, but it is my job to help you sift through which is which and
Yeah.
what makes the most sense strategically for your goals, your
Yeah.
business, you specifically, you know?
Yeah. It was when before I hired you, I was definitely in the spaghetti mode of thinking, oh, I need Facebook ads, or oh, I need a copywriter, or oh, I need this, and oh, I need that. And I kept just buying things thinking this would be like the silver bullet, the thing that I've been missing. Um, and your first homework assignment for me was to unsubscribe to all marketing.
Yeah. Totally. Because I think that it's so hard to hear your own voice when it's constantly being filtered through other people's. And I think that that is like one of the first things I have a lot of clients do because it just makes it so freaking confusing, right? And I think at the point at which you were at, and especially when we're trying to like, let me get all the marketing things, let me sign up for the things, let me buy the things, let me throw money at ads, like whatever. We're trying to we're trying to outsource something externally that we need to solve internally. And I think
Yeah.
that that's really a hard place to be in business because it's not like any of the things you were trying to do were inherently bad. Like, I think that there's a place for every single one of those in business. And yeah, in the beginning of business, so much of your work is that internal, how can I hear my own voice? How can I trust this is my path? How can I let this be okay if I get the bad review, if this isn't where I end up long term, right? Like so much of it is that internal work that guides the decisions moving
Yeah.
forward. And when you have that clarity, all of those other things tend to fall into place. Like this podcast, for example, that was a great example of it. You
Yeah.
had that inner clarity. You were like, I want a podcast. We kind of talked through the logistics of that. And you're like, it'll show up. And then it did, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It showed up in such a weird way. So I was, yeah. So one thing is it was really validating to talk to you about like, no, I'm just recording in my house. Like it's fine. I'm not going to a studio because I know some people rent studio space and you're like, no, it does not need to be super complicated. We're actually recording right now through Zoom. So really, if you have an idea to start a podcast, Google it. It's not that hard. Don't
yeah,
don't don't buy a course. It's fine. You can you'll be okay. But what was interesting is we did have that idea of like the universe will meet me halfway. If it's the right time for a podcast, it's the right time for a podcast. And I just there was a post in a Reddit group of this new studio kind of not studio I guess it was but it was a conglomerate and they were looking for new podcasters and they would produce it and do it all for free. And so I signed up and that's how I got the first network. So that was Ship It Studios. They have since sort of moved on and now have Taylor. So thank you, Taylor, for being here.
yeah, but that's such a good example of how many of those pieces tend to align on our journey when we do have that internal clarity. And I think that's so important for people to hear because if you don't have that, it's the thing that keeps you spinning. It's the thing that keeps you purchasing. It's the thing that almost makes it harder because you're looking for the easy button. You're looking for the one thing that's going to like make it all click into place. And most of the time, the one thing is mindset, right? Like the one thing is that clarity. And then with the right support, it's so much easier to take those actions that build up, but they feel like a million times lighter because you're not trying to like push a boulder up a hill anymore because you don't have the clarity.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. You had gotten me restarted into journaling. I had always been kind of a brain dump journaler or a this is what had happened journaler, but you started asking me to kind of step into the future. So Amanda's coaching program is called Future You Coaching. And so you're stepping into the future you. Well, how would future you handle this obstacle? And it was very helpful. And I've since used a lot of her guidance to create my own daily journaling worksheet for my coaching clients. But that is so beneficial, because when you're stuck in something, rehashing it over and over again isn't going to help take you to the next step. And I didn't realize at the time that I was doing that. I didn't realize at the time that I was annoyed that the agent was like, yeah, I just want you to do pressure cooker books. And the cookbook people, those publishers, refused to entertain any of my other book proposals. And so it wasn't that I was feeling sorry for myself, but I felt like I was in this kind of like hole or rut that I couldn't see my way out of.
Yeah, totally. And I think that that's the magic of journaling, is that it can give you enough space between like the thoughts that are going on in your head and actually seeing them on the page. And sometimes just that separation is the thing that helps us to see it more objectively, or see it more clearly, or see a different path. I think so often when people don't like journaling, they're like, but I don't have an hour to journal every morning. Or but like, I can sort it all through in my head. Like, I'm good here. And it's like, okay, give it a try. Like, give it 30 days.
Yeah, that's
Give
what I
it
say
30
too.
days and give it 10 minutes, right? And see if that actually is the thing that helps you to get out of your own head and move things forward. Because 9 out of 10 times, it really is the thing that helps you to see it more objectively, to even just see her desires more objectively. I think that one of the biggest things when it comes to, I mean, business, but life in general as well, is that most people don't get what they want because they don't even know what they want,
Yeah.
right? And I think that if you can get really clear on what the desire is, again, it makes the actions come with so much more ease because you know what you're working toward. Again, I really believe those desires are the roadmap. Like, you have to trust those 10 out of 10
Yeah.
because if you don't, then there's like a whole self-trust dynamic thing going on there too. And that's a whole nother piece of mindset work in journaling should do, right? But I think that even just that separation, even just looking at, okay, this is the desire and I can see it clearly, and now I'm going to work on taking action toward that, like that in
Yeah.
itself will change your life.
Yeah. No, it absolutely will. It absolutely will. And it's funny. I mean, I said this in the intro, but I'm gonna say it again because it's most deaf true. You absolutely helped change the trajectory that I was on. Because one, I was in kind of a rut, but then also, so we started working in fall of 2020. So that's peak COVID time.
Mm.
I had gone back to work in an elementary school in Mrs. Adair, uh, a year earlier. So it had been a whole year. I now understood how to be Mrs. O'Day as the school site secretary. Totally, I'm very good at it. Um, but I knew, one, that wasn't actually my identity. It was just the day job. It was just where I was going to make money. And they don't pay me to be creative. I'm literally just need to stay in my lane. And so I knew there was this other creative side kind of percolating, and you helped me realize that one, I didn't have to write pot roast recipes for the rest of my life. But two, that there was no shame in having that day job, in staying in Mrs. O'Day, and some of the other kind of online businessy people, and even on Shark Tank, they'll yell at you like, you're not an entrepreneur, you're a wantapreneur if you don't quit your day job. But you
Yeah.
understood all of the puzzle pieces. Like, no, this is a means to the end. You get a pension, you get this, and you can still do these things. And the fact that you didn't make me feel wrong for any of those choices and validated them, it was exactly what I needed at the time.
Yeah, I mean, coaching is so nuanced. And I think this is why one-on-one coaching really shines. It's because, yeah, if you simply went by all the marketing that's out there around quit your job, go all in on your daydream, do the thing, like it's not real if you don't, like that'll really, really mess with your finances.
Yeah.
And especially if you need that stability. I work with a lot of humans who are more sensitive souls who really do need to have financial stability to feel like their needs are met. I mean, that's a basic human need in general. But
Yes.
I think that they operate much more creatively and their nervous system is much more regulated if they do have that financial stability. So don't get me wrong, and starting a business does require a certain amount of investment. It does require a certain amount of risk. And the way that most people better tolerate that risk is by having the resources to do so, right? So it would have been absolutely bananas for me to be like, okay, Steph, you want this? Go quit your job, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's just not what was best in support of you and not best in support of your long-term goals either, right? Because it would be really easy to look at the short term and be like, okay, this is what you want. Here's how you get it, but not to take into account like how valuable a pension would be or like all of the other things that really do factor into that. So, I mean, that's just something I think about the business coaching industry in general is that it doesn't always translate those nuances and it doesn't always take the whole picture and the whole person into account. And I think that's one of the reasons I feel very passionate about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if you're interested and you're listening into more on this, I episode 44 I recorded on ignoring influencers, and episode 70 I recorded on sniffing out scams. Because both Amanda and I have that same kind of belief and mindset that if something feels a little too markety, hustly, it's this way or no way, that's a red light and a red flag. So pay attention and do some research. Because I mean, I've absolutely fallen for marketing hype and spent money that thankfully it's not going to make or break us, but it feels bad, and that's not a good feeling.
Totally. I mean, I think there's a shame in that too, right?
Oh
For
yeah,
falling for something, for not getting the result that the coach was preaching or insert thing
yeah,
here. Like, I think that so much of this marketing in the business space is built up on shame, which is really a shame. But I think that that's one of the things to look at first, which is like, is this a true desire? Or is this something that I feel like I should want or a way it should go? Right. And I think that again, going back to that piece, when you can get clear on no, this is not something I have to feel shame around. It is not actually a bad thing for you to collect a pension, like in any version of this, right? Like, I
yeah.
think that that's so valuable because shame will hold you down, shame will hold you back. But if you can release that and get really clear on what you want and that it's ultimately serving you, that's only going to benefit you.
Yeah. And also it's not a quick fix. You and I know had joked about like 10 weeks to six pack abs and that kind of stuff. And maybe that will get someone to click, and it's clickbait. But in real life, if you're over a certain BMI, you're probably not going to get six pack abs in 6 weeks or 10 weeks or whatever the ad says. There's a whole bunch of other steps. So Amanda worked with me to kind of flesh out my sort of slow living philosophy, and I had talked to her a lot about how I like to garden, and I know she likes to run, and so she uses in her podcast a lot of the metaphor of this is a marathon, not a sprint, not a flash race, which absolutely leads into slow living because be the tortoise, not the hare, and all that kind of stuff. But when I'm working one-on-one with clients, we talk about a 3-year plan, because a lot of times when people have this kind of New Year's resolution of revamping their whole life, it's really not practical to think you're going to do it all in 1 year. And then 5 years is a great idea, but sometimes that feels a little far fetched or far away, so you don't actually start taking daily action. So we do this 3-year plan. And so I like the metaphor of a vine. Of the first year it sleeps, and then the second year it creeps, and then the third year it leaps. And so if you look at the fact that I actually worked with Amanda, it's now been 4 years ago, and in that year we were working together, we literally were planning the plan, and
Yeah.
then I put the plan in action of sleeping, creeping, leaping, and I'm just so thrilled that you're back, because all of this stuff that I wanted while we were creating is beginning to bloom. It's beginning to come alive. You helped me work on a book proposal, and so that book will come out this fall. And the feedback when I gave you that first draft of the book proposal, you probably don't remember this, but your first line was, "OMG, Steph, I have chills." And that was what I wanted to hear. And it was just so precious. So I really thank you for that.
Oh my gosh, I do remember that. But I think that that's what we all need more of, right? Like we need someone in our corner to see that and to voice that. And don't get me wrong, like we definitely had conversations where like it wasn't always simply there to make you
Yeah.
feel better.
No, sometimes you actually really pissed me off. And my husband's like, "Why are you paying her?" I'm like, "It's fine. It's fine." But yeah, sometimes you actually did kind of piss me off, but that's okay too. I love you.
But I think that's valuable to see because like my role as a coach is to help you think about these things more objectively and to see your own magic and to reflect that back to you. And I think that the book proposal was such a great example of that because you really did see it. Like you really did the work to get behind this vision that you had. And it's not, I think you had doubts that came up along the way,
Oh
but
yeah.
I also think that you believed in it more than you didn't, right?
Mm.
And I think the book proposal was the first time where I looked at it and I was like, this is happening. Like, there's no way this is not happening. And I think that's what gave me chills was just like how clearly you were able to express it and how much solidity I felt in everything that you had to say there. And then it just became a matter of like, how do we knock on enough doors? Like how do
Yes.
we find the door that's going to open here? But I give you so much credit because you were never I'm going to sit on my hands and see what happens kind of person. I even remember when we first started working together, you were like, great, I'm in the middle of a rebrand or like, is that okay? Can we do this at the same time? And I was like, yeah, like I see that for you. And I think that was just such a testament of like, you were really willing to run at the thing. You were really willing to take the action. And of course that takes mindset work along the way, but you just always believed in it more than you didn't. And I think that's so valuable to see there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I like the mindset plus action plus consistency kind of equals success
Yeah.
formula. And I remember talking to you about, well, how do I do this? And still I don't want to burn down the crockpot site because it's actually paying for me doing this other stuff. And marry the two. And so it's up on the whiteboard right there. And you can't tell. We're on Zoom right now, but while I was on a call with Amanda, I wrote it down like my plan. And so it's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I send out a crockpot email. Tuesday, I send out this is the podcast episode. And then Thursday, it's a Friday Eve message from Steph. And then Sunday is the slow living newsletter, like Slow Down Sunday or Sunday. What do I call it? Sunday Slow Down. But I had all this idea and I'm running it by Amanda. She's like, "Great." And I said, "Well, how will I know if it's working or not?" And she goes, "You just keep doing it until it works because it will eventually work because any strategy you have, if you believe in it and you do it long enough, it'll just work." And that was just like such a relief. Like, okay, Steph, you don't have to like reinvent this every 3 months. If it's not working yet, it will work. And so I appreciate that for you, from you, because I think I would have probably burnt the whole thing down over and over and over again.
Totally. I mean, I think the question just becomes like, how do I stick with it long enough to find what works? Right. And I think that sometimes we're like, well, like our brains love to overcomplicate success. They love to think that there's something out there that we just don't have. And like, we've got to try something else. And like, this is not working. Right. When the truth is, most of the time, it's a very simple shift to what you're already doing that ultimately is the tweak that helps it to work better and better. Right. So again, when we're all up in our emotions and we're all like, it's not working yet, it's really hard to see like, oh, but you didn't actually like pitch it there, or you didn't actually tell them why they want it, or whatever it is. And that's such a simple, like we're literally talking like 2 sentences in an email kind of simple shift.
Yeah.
But that can be the thing that ultimately helps you to get better results. So it's looking for those little things that ultimately help it to work better and better and better. And that's how businesses are built. It's not by, can you imagine trying to build a house if you were going to burn it down every single time? Like
Right.
it would be nearly impossible. Right. And so I think that that's just so helpful. And that's what that conversation was all about was, yeah, you're just going to keep working at it till it works. Like that's how this
Yeah.
happens.
Hey there. Are you looking for an easier way to meet your goals without sacrificing your ethics or morals? If so, you're going to want to check out the new masterclass I recorded on how to achieve more by learning how to slow down. I know it sounds like an oxymoron, but I promise you that this is a proven system that works. If you are ready to finally meet your personal and professional goals without sacrificing yourself or your sanity, check out this new recording at stephanieoday.com/masterclass. Okay, back to this week's episode. And what's so interesting is I hired you as a business coach, but I really wanted the mindset. And so like that idea of these are the emails that I'm going to send out. That was my idea. You didn't tell me, Steph, this is what you're going to do. I figured it out for you because I've bought those kind of things before
Yeah.
and it doesn't work because you're not in my brain and my body and in my email list and getting the writing back and forth of people hitting reply. You, one, trusted me that I knew my audience very well and then gave me enough validation and faith that my idea was a good idea and it'll be fine and it'll work out. And I think that's one of the reasons why you're so successful and others are not is you truly understand that there are so many, as you say, nuances and shades of gray and everyone's life circumstance and socioeconomics and family dynamics all come into play. And if you wanted like a silly sales email or something, you would just put it in chat GPT and it would regurgitate it for you. And that's not what actually will work.
Right, totally. And I think that even going back to what you said earlier, where like you didn't hand me the email plan, the reason that doesn't work is because then also it becomes so much more about like, I'm just here to check the box. I'm just here. Amanda said to do this email. So I'm just here to like check it off the to-do list and then I'll have a successful business. And what you and I are both saying here is like, you have to feel that mind, body, soul. Like you have to understand, like, what does my audience need to hear today? What am I feeling? Can I tap into that? Like business goes so much deeper, especially lately. Like
Yeah.
consumers are getting so much smarter and they can feel the difference. The same way we've always said you can feel the icky marketing. Like
Yeah.
they can truly feel the difference between when you're in it and when you are just looking to check the box and get the email out and like hit the easy button on the successful business. Like that is palpable
Yeah.
lately.
Yeah. And it feels gross. Like it doesn't you said something, I don't know if it was with me or on a podcast that people like to buy things, but they don't want to be sold.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it does. Like I get really excited when I see something that I want and I buy it and it's wonderful. I get excited and I want to tell everybody about it. But if I'm pushed into something or if I fall for something, that feels skeezy.
Yeah, I mean, we all want to feel like a human being and not just a number or a dollar sign. That's pretty basic human
Yeah.
emotions there. And I think that people do like to buy things.
Yeah,
100%.
100%.
But they don't like to feel like that's the only reason that they're there. And I think that just, again, goes back to like business is so much deeper than just the money, right? Or just the sale.
Yeah. Um, so I had a follow-up coaching call with one of my clients. I think it's episode 105 with Beth. And so we had talked about mindset coaching. And I think in a recording I did for your podcast, I used this analogy. But for mindset, my dad used to clean fish tanks. And like the fish tank looks clean, it looks fine. And then he would put his hand in there and stir around the rocks and like all the gunk would come up. And to me, that's what like quote unquote cleaning up your mindset is stirring up the gunk. So then earlier when I told you that sometimes you pissed me off, it was because of that.
Totally.
But
Yeah.
I needed it. And also you're secure enough in yourself that I could be like, yeah, so you kind of pissed me off. Give me a second while I process this. So thank you.
Because I think a lot of times it's really easy to be like, everything's fine, like the fish tank is clean, right? And then that's funny. My dad had a 110-gallon fish tank when I was growing up
Yeah.
too. So I like distinctly remember him changing out the water and like the process and how I can literally picture that visual. But it's so funny because the gunk is what keeps us stuck. Whether we acknowledge it or not, it's there, right? So by not looking at the gunk, we're actually doing ourselves a disservice, even though we don't realize it, because that's going back to like the subconscious programming that runs the show. That's what's going on in your head. That's your computer updating in the background while you're trying to move your mouse around and do stuff. And that's actually what holds us back. So when we can look at it and we can see what's there, we can clean it up and we can move forward a lot faster rather than pretending it's not there and trying to like get through the computer update anyway, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And one other, so you had asked me if there were any books or business like things that I had done in the past or something that I really followed. And so I mentioned the Brian Tracy 21 success habits of or success secrets for a self-made millionaire. And then I said that unbeknownst to me over the course of my marriage, which I guess had been 20 years at the time, we did all those things. And then you're like, so Steph, you've got to like write your own success secrets. And that was one of the assignments that you had me do. So I have since recorded that podcast episode and actually I think there were 3 parts. But it was just really interesting that it was such a great idea and it wasn't something that I would have come up with on my own without you just very flippantly being like, Steph, you should just do this then. I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah. You've created a lot of slow living content unbeknownst to you.
That's amazing. And again, I think this is so helpful to hear because it's not like I make every single client do that. Like, it's not like there's some formula to this where I'm like, well, every client has to write their 21 success secrets
I
and
know.
then they'll be successful. Like,
Yeah.
no, that was very specific to you, but I could see that. Like, you really believe that that was like a part of success was having that thought leadership, having that foundation to build upon. And that made it a really obvious decision for me that you needed to go and write those. You needed that foundation, and that was only going to make your belief in this even stronger. So that's why that became a homework assignment. And I think it was, I mean, you're saying it was
It worked well.
valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it worked well. And then I'm cognizant of our time. But what's interesting, so I didn't share this with you because this wasn't in the first book proposal, but since we've gone through a few different iterations of the book proposal, and then also if you're listening, I think it's episode 109 where I outline all of my publishing stories. Sometimes from afar it looks like it's easier because I kind of gloss over the hard work. I got to tell you, it took 2 to 3 years to find my first agent. Amanda and I, we're in 24 right now. We worked on the first iteration of the slow living book at the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, and I collected a lot of no's, probably 40 to 50 no's in order to find a yes. So it really doesn't matter how many no's you collect, but just keep collecting and not giving up. So I don't want to gloss over the fact that there was work involved, even though when you look back on it, it's like, oh, that was only 2 or 3 years. Like that's nothing. So it at the time it felt like a lot and it felt like hard work. But you would like this. So I came up with an acronym, and this is what ended up selling the book. Is so the acronym for SLOW is to simply look only within.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah. And so very mindset-y. And the fact is that hustle and hype is out there, and this is how you do it, and this is how you get your rock star abs, and this is how you get the marriage of your dreams, and this is how to have the perfectly well-behaved child. Sells and is clickbait and will get you to do things out of like the fear of missing out, but that's not real life. And in real life, sure, do your research and then filter it. And that is a big part of mindset work.
Yes, 100%. And I just love how you brought that all together. It's so good. So good.
All right. Okay. I need to wake up Sheldon. But what's fun is this is the time of day. So I'm recording this O Dark 100, and I still have my my daylight light, and Amanda's on in a different time zone. So she actually has golden sunlight on her face right now, which is beautiful and lovely. But this is when we met. And what I appreciated is I gave her a whole bunch of parameters of, well, I work full time and I do this and I do that. And so sometimes you met with me on my lunch break, and I was hiding in a room so I didn't have to wear a mask. Um, but you were so flexible and just open and willing to make it work. And I am not techie, and you had this base camp thing and you're like, no, just download. I'm like, I don't want to download. I don't want to do things. And it just all worked out well. So if the idea is that you're interested in business coaching and mindset coaching, and you think it won't work for you, or you think you're an outlier, get on a call and feel the person out.
Yeah,
Because if it's a good fit, it's a good fit. And you and your coach will work together to get your needs met.
totally. I absolutely believe that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I remember messaging you and I'm like, so I'm seeing your calendar, but I work full time and none of these times will work. Can you inch this forward? And you wrote back quickly and you're like, yeah, no problem. No biggie. Yeah.
Totally. And it's so funny how big our brain makes those things, right? Like, I'm sure it took a lot of courage to send that email and be like, I can't do the times listed. But like, those are the things that you just move through so much faster when you have support, because those don't hold you back anymore. And like, that's the thing that gets you moving.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Very cool. All right, Amanda, before we log off, is there anything that
Yes.
you want to say?
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for having me, first of all. If people love what they heard today, they can head over to the One Simple Shift podcast, where we talk about one simple shift that can completely transform the way you show up daily and the results you see because of it, so that you can ultimately grow your business. So this was an amazing taste of that, and I would love for you to head over there and listen. And that free call that Steph mentioned is my free sincere sales coaching call, where we can get to the root of your biggest mindset block around sales and making money in your business, and we can shift it. So you can head over to my website at amandajoyceweber.com or send me a DM over on Instagram at Amanda Joyce Weber, and we can get you set up for a time for that.
All right. Like it, love it. What is it? Like it, love it, want some more of it. I think it's great. Also, you did help me get over, I think I told you I hate Instagram. And you're like, yeah, so what if you just didn't hate Instagram? Like, get over that stuff. I'm like, oh, okay. So thank you.
Amazing. Well, thank you again for having me. It was such a joy to be able to reconnect with you. And I just know this is going to help so many people.
Absolutely. All right, pretty people, consider yourself loved and hugged. I think you are absolutely wonderful, and I will be back next week in your earbuds. Do you have a slow living story to share? Leave me a voicemail at stephanieoday.com/podcast with any questions, comments, feedback, or testimonials, and I will be sure to include it in an upcoming episode. Also, if you found value in this episode, please share it with your family and friends and subscribe through your favorite podcast provider. The more you share, comment, and leave positive reviews, the more people we can reach and share the slow living lifestyle and messaging. Thank you, Slow Down Society, and have an absolutely wonderful day.